Patricia Keating from wisdomseekers.net. And we're here today with Erin, or Connect with Erin, who's a medium. And we're going to talk about, did you still want to talk about the same thing?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay. So what we wanted to talk about, and this is a big subject right now, mourning after a loved one has passed, and specifically mourning in relationship to somebody who has committed suicide. And we want to walk you through what it's like for the people who commit suicide. And we can also answer a few questions on what it's like to be left behind. Okay? So,
my daughter was saying hi. I love you. I'm sorry.
No problem. I mean, we have dogs, and my daughter, my 3-year-old daughter, she's got these big lights to walk in the dark. She thought it would be really cool to put me in the spotlight. Right in my eyes. Yeah. So, I mean, just how to say goodbye, that's nothing.
Yeah.
So, Moonflower, hi, ladies. How are you all?
Hi, everybody. I can't right now.
Divine Empress says hi. Kathy McClay says hello. And we are, this is not one question per person at the moment. We are going to be talking about a theme. We're going to be talking about mourning and suicide, and what it's like for people who have committed suicide, and maybe possibly if you have questions about that, what it's like to be left behind. Just so you all know, okay? Because it's nice to see you all. So,
hi, everybody.
Have you dealt with a lot of people who've committed suicide? I have had a few instances.
You know, I know we want to focus on suicide, but I feel like we need to talk about also the deaths from like overdoses.
Yeah, those are all. They might not be intentional, but they are there.
Right. And I have dealt with that a lot. Both of them, just, and it's for the person that passed, and then for the person or people that are left behind. But both of them, you're using, say, drugs or alcohol to numb, not to deal with life. And sometimes they're connected with suicide, sometimes they're not, but it's a soul sickness. It's something I can't stand when I hear people say how selfish people are for committing suicide, or something like that, because I don't feel that it is anything like that. If you have ever been in that place where you really don't feel like there is any other answer, you feel that people would be better off without you, it's indescribable unless you have really ever been to that point. Okay.
It feels, when I go in and look at it, it feels like you're surrounded by black, and there's no light coming in, and there's no positive answer. Yeah, which I also know that people, not overdoses so much, but people who have committed suicide, most of them are just about, they get so far along, they say, no, I don't want to do it, but it's too late to turn back because it's just the physical act is already committed. But that, I have found that a lot. It's not until you get to the place where this is it final, that you can maybe see a bit of light. And I'm
Right.
sorry, Bobby, this is not that kind of interactive. We're talking about people who have died suddenly, accidentally, or with intention, and what it's like for them to go on the other side. Also, for people who are left behind.
Right.
Well, one thing I do know. Wow, we've got a lot of
Hi,
questions.
everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Are just comments right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I did put in a notification that questions on current topic right now will be answered sooner than other questions.
Yeah.
So I got you covered, Ma.
So one thing I've noticed when I've talked to people or gone in, not to actually talk to people, but gone in to check on people who have died and died in uncomfortable circumstances, that it's really hard to get to them because
Yes.
they're surrounded by the emotional support team.
Right. And what I get, this just happens, it seems to happen each time, is it's like this shame, this where they're not sure, they want to talk, they're afraid, they know what has happened now, and there's guilt, shame, remorse type of thing, and
And a
so,
lot of it would depend on their spiritual religious beliefs.
right. But
Yeah.
just what I have found is connecting with ones on this side, they're real careful, real, not knowing what to expect. So
How they're
they
going to be received, yeah.
yeah, tread like real lightly,
Mm-hmm. And a lot of them, when they do come out of their black hole, when they do start to heal, the remorse is quite intense.
Yeah.
At least that's what I've had the pleasure of discovering.
Yes. Yes. It really is. It's an overwhelming feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to even describe unless just the feeling that I can feel from them, but and there are times though that I've run into with both suicide and overdoses to where they don't know what happened. Like it's that quick that they don't realize that it really happened, and they want to know what's going on. I have had actually within the last couple of months, it was a young gentleman that overdosed
Right.
and passed away, and I knew him personally, and next thing I know, he is in my kitchen. I hear my name, and he is wanting to know what happened, and I knew that he had relapsed. And I just, I told him, I said, you didn't make it this time. You went too far this time, so explain to him what was going on, and just the understanding, it helped him, but then of course, like you said, he was surrounded by a lot of, angels, healers, guides.
They look to me like white coats, like doctors and nurses when I went in to see that one time specifically.
Right.
I thought that was quite funny, actually. Not funny, haha, but
Yeah, just neat. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
And the fact is, I mean, there's one of the things that is really important for people to know. It is rather frowned on to commit suicide, but it's not a straight down to hell destination because you did it.
Right. There's no hell anyway.
There isn't really. It was made up.
Yeah, man-made.
Yeah, but with people have been indoctrinated with the idea that it's a sin. Well,
The man-made religions,
but
and just
God is not going to go down and smite you twice.
right. And just that doing it where what I was talking about earlier, where then you'll hear people, they were so selfish, and it's like, you don't get it. You don't get it.
But sometimes too, I mean, if you get somebody to come back before they do that and you point that out to them, that also doesn't hurt. Because then they realize how much they're hurting, how the people they're leaving behind, how much they're hurting those people.
Yeah.
So
You mean like before they were to commit?
well, if there was somebody who tried and then they didn't succeed,
Okay.
and then then that sometimes is not necessarily a horrible thing to point out to them, that it is, who are you leaving behind? Look at the hurt you're leaving, that you're,
Yeah.
that's people who don't make it. And
Right.
then it gives them an extra reason for staying around.
Have you had an experience with that?
Yes.
Have you? I haven't.
Yeah.
One of our YouTube moderators, Lori Dotson, adds along the lines of what we're talking about, says, my brother shot himself during a fight with our older brother. It ruined my family, divided everyone. My mom was also in depression before this happened.
Yeah.
Her mom was also what?
In the depression before the, yeah.
Before it happened.
But the thing is, nobody forced that person to commit suicide.
Right.
It was a choice. Nobody, even then, it's a choice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of, being human, where, we want to take on that responsibility where, if I would have, or I should have, and it's coming to the understanding that really we're not that powerful. We're really not that powerful.
Say that again in a different way. I just
we don't have the power
you
to
mean,
make somebody commit suicide.
okay, yeah, that I get you. I get you now.
Okay. We don't have that kind of power. So then to turn around and take on, I shoulda, woulda, coulda,
Mm-hmm. It's not our right, for one thing.
And I can't even imagine, if it was like my child or, anybody, and I would have, I bet I would have that kind of a feeling, but just knowing that I did what I could, I couldn't have stopped it. If that was the choice that person made, it's not my fault,
Yeah,
and then
it's huge.
the grieving process, that's when the grieving process comes in, and recognizing where you are in the grieving process, the denial at first. I don't believe this is happening. This isn't, if I just pretend it's not going on, it'll go away.
And there are these Kubler-Ross stages of life, of mourning, right?
Yeah.
And you basically should go through them all.
Yeah.
We have a question on the topic.
Okay.
Alicia P98 asks, hi, are there cases of negative energies that prey on those who've committed suicide and or died suddenly?
Unfortunately, yes. And quite often, if you can get somebody who's in a negative state and who is suicidal or who is hiding in a bottle or a drug, and you can do a clearing, it will alleviate some of the pressure. Quite often alleviate it enough so that they can, for a week or two at least, start to get out of it. And then they'd probably need again to have that outside help of clearing. But there are a lot of negative entities out there, energies that feed off negative emotions. So yeah, it quite often you'll find that is a factor in pretty well everyone, I would suspect. And
Now-
that I'm speaking from experience, that when I have worked on people and cleared them, they can feel a difference, and they have that breathing space to think differently for a while.
Am I understanding this correctly? The question, because I don't see it. The question is,
Let me see if I can find it.
I can come over and help you.
Because there's a lot of questions up here.
Yeah, also Lily Dulo has a question on similar along the lines.
I don't know where they are.
Here,
There's
I
a
can
lot of
come over and
comments.
help you.
Sorry.
I just thought, if I heard it right, the question was asking about the negative, like, energies around before a person commits suicide or after?
I think it might be after too. I'm not sure.
It could. I mean, the way it's phrased, it seems like it could be perceived as both ways, before and afterwards.
Okay. Now, do you feel, when somebody, I don't feel that, once you cross, you're just like grabbed up and surrounded and loved to death.
Not always, unfortunately. It depends on your emotional state, right? Sometimes you're so dark that you're surrounded by this love, but you put yourself into this little corner, and it is just black in there. So I'm not that. So if they can be caught up again by that, I don't know, but I know if they went over and they took these thought with them, they might be caught up with them in that space until the light
healing.
workers can
Right.
break through.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I haven't actually dealt with that, because most of the people I've dealt with who have gone through suicide, they're open enough to start working on themselves relatively soon.
Yeah.
But I do know this happens from talking to other people.
Okay.
But that's the only source I've got.
Right. And that was kind of where I was heading to, is there are the healers, they are there and trying to help in this healing process.
Yeah. And they have to be so careful because of free will, right? They can't just go in and say, "Hey, wake up, wake up." They have to allow you to say, "Oh, okay, maybe," and then when you get the maybe, they can go rush in.
Now, do you believe we cross over with free will?
I suspect that on some level we have chosen everything, not maybe on the physical level, but on another level. There, we have chosen this as some kind of learning experience.
Would it also depend on the state of mind of the person taking their own life or dying suddenly? Like if they were in a depression when
Oh, sure.
they say,
Mhm.
I don't see the reason why I should keep going on, or
Well, the thing is, because we have free will, it's part that is also part of it. We have the free will to choose to leave.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I just wanted to see if I was misunderstanding. Are the free will, like once we cross over, is there free will? Or is at that point
I think there's still free will. At least from what I've when I talk to people on the other side,
Mhm.
it appears that they have free will to go to whatever level
Okay.
that they're drawn to. So, for instance, when my mother passed over, she was here, she was there, she was everywhere, and she was having a blast because there was no fear of death. She didn't think she was going to hell. She didn't think she was going anywhere. So she just flitted everywhere. But other people who fear that they have lived a bad life, they have that fear. They go to a darker level and they can't.
Right.
And it's their choice to see it that way, because if they open up their eyes, I think actually some people have actually gone to a heaven that has clouds and they strum instruments for a while until they get really bored, and then they start thinking, it's got to be more than this.
There's another question along the lines of the previous one from Alicia P98.
Okay.
It's from Lily Dulo. She asks, some days ago, a girl of 23 years killed herself in Albania due to lack of employment and debts her family had. She didn't want to be a burden to her family anymore. Are these people mentally weak?
Not weak so much as ill prepared.
I agree. I don't think mentally weak. No.
Yeah, they just don't have a really strong understanding of reality. And it's my understanding that if you commit suicide in one life, it's more than likely you will do it for 2 or 3 or 4 more lives until you recognize it's not a way out.
Right.
So it might have been a habit for her. And the funny thing is, if they'd waited just a little while, maybe 6 months, a year even, it probably would have changed.
Well, and exactly. And but then that's trying to get into the mind of somebody who is suicidal, and you can't even imagine to have so much piled on you to where you feel that the only way out is to do something like that. That's a horrible place to be, and
It really is. I know I'm just agreeing with you. You don't have to stop. There's so many questions there. I'm not used to. I'm going, whoa.
Yeah.
So this is a big, important subject for people. That.
Well, I feel like in some way or another, people have dealt with suicide either.
And it's a verboten subject. You're not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I think everybody's been touched by suicide or sudden death, or
yeah,
and it's hard. So for you remember quite a few years ago, I was at a school play, and one of their friends had been killed in a car accident, and the young people just did not know how to deal with the death.
right.
They had not been trained. They had not been taught.
When my son was in 9th grade, my oldest, one of his really good friends committed suicide.
Mm.
And it's haunted everybody, but what happened was he had hung himself, but there was marks of the regret trying to grab, and So that has been extremely difficult for, I mean, of course, family, but the friends, you know, you're talking they're 13, 14 years old. And, you know, it's suicide is a permanent solution for temporary problems.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, if you just hold on one more day, just hold on, you know, things always get better. It may not be perfect overnight, you know, but the bottom line is, though, it does happen. You know, people do it. It's
There's
and I'll tell you, I have been in the position, okay, where I have wanted to commit suicide. Okay. I have felt that despair, that hopelessness, that pit darkness. It's, you can't even imagine, to the point where, and talking on a personal level, it was like, yes, I had my kids and I would think of them, but at the same time, I felt that they would all be better without me. Like, wholeheartedly, it was like, you know, but thank God, you know, I was able to hang on to that, just that real little shred of a string of, I didn't want to mess up their lives by me doing something. But I have
was going to ask you, how did you get out of it?
Yeah, I have been in that hell. And talking about it, having somebody listen. Sometimes, honestly, there was some times where I would sleep, you know, because it was like, then I didn't have to deal with anything. For me, finding a power greater than myself, whoever that may be for you, the universe, God, divine, Buddha, you know, whatever, but just knowing that there is a power greater than us.
Yeah. And it is, that's the thing there. It is realizing that there is more to life than we can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just reading Arlene's. Hi, ladies. I knew it was inevitable for my daughter to take her life. I wasn't shocked when she did it. Nonetheless, the loss and sadness is still the same, even knowing it was inevitable. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't stop it. And the thing is, if you probably talk to your daughter now, she probably would apologize.
Right.
At least that's what I've noticed. Most of them will have apologized. But then there's other deaths like Robin Williams, where he committed suicide, but it was because he didn't want his dementia to take away his faculties and let his family have to deal with it. Plus, he was very depressed.
Right.
But if you take away the depression, there are suicides that are. Well, I've seen a woman die from brain cancer, and I think in that case, I would have committed suicide rather than go through the pain that she went through. It was. I mean, the amount of pain was very, and you're not going to live through it anyhow. I think in cases like that, I would definitely opt out early.
And you know, the other thing that I have found in some of the individuals I have spoke to that have passed over from suicide, even from overdosing, is yes, they want to apologize, like you mentioned, but also there are messages that letting family know you couldn't have done anything. It wasn't your fault. You couldn't have stopped it. You know, just to help them be able to live with themselves without that I should have, I would, you know, I could have,
Yeah,
you know, and
you're right. There's nothing you could have.
right,
Yeah.
you know, and Arlene, I mean, I'm a parent, I can't even imagine anything, you know, even if somebody is sick and they're expected to die, you know, it is a shock. It's still, you know, and there's so many opinions about assisted suicide, about, you know, all of that. And I stand back and to each their own, you know, as far as the assisted suicide. I understand then when it comes to the suicides, uh, it's just touchy. It's just touchy. I think the most important thing is I don't judge. I don't judge because who the heck am I to judge?
Yeah. And that's true. And it's very difficult. I mean, at least like Lori Dotson says, it left her family broken. And she
Yes,
had taken away the guns
And
for,
knives from her brother who demanded them back.
and I suspect from her saying that she feels guilty because she did. There's other ways of finding guns. There's other ways of finding knives. There's other
right,
ways of dealing with it.
She also adds, you cannot stop them if they are wanting to do it. I had to forgive my brother
right.
for leaving me here alone. I feel so bad about it. And sending everyone here so much love and bear hugs. I will light a healing candle for you all right now. I had to forgive myself.
That's important. That's important
Yeah.
one.
It is a white candle if you all want to know.
Okay.
Yes,
Healing candle. By the way.
thank you.
And that's the thing, right? Forgiving yourself for other people's actions
Well,
is
and that,
valuable.
yeah, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier, where we don't have that kind of power to stop somebody.
No,
They're gonna find it.
you're gonna
They're
do it.
gonna, you know,
Go ahead. I'm just trying to find.
I'm doing the same thing.
Okay, good.
Are you looking for other comments?
Comments, questions online on topic.
Let me help you.
Yeah, please.
Lori Dodson says that she really appreciates us being in her life. You are great people. Same vibes as me.
Oh, thank you, Lori. Well, there were some other things that I was thinking, and then I was waiting to say them, and then of course they go out of my mind, but I don't say them immediately. But one of the things I thought would be interesting is, one of the things I remember was they come back and they apologize, people who have, but they also say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and my life is improving 90% of the time.
Right,
And that
right,
depends how long they've been over, how much they,
right, right.
but usually they become just like anybody who's passed over. Hey, life is really cool over here.
We do have
Yeah.
a comment from, I believe she's a new viewer. They are a new viewer. They're a new commenter.
Okay.
Anyways, Amethyst.
Okay.
She says, they say, hello, ladies. When in that state of depression, no one can really help depression. Help. Depression is a mental illness and can't just be fixed like that.
No,
Right. Right.
it's a time process, and that's why they have things like Suicide Watch.
And that's where when I was sharing my story earlier, I sought out professional help too, and medications to help me. Unfortunately, not everybody does that, but you're absolutely right. It is a mental illness.
Did we want to recap what the topic is for people who are just tuning in?
Okay, yes, we're talking about sudden death, suicides, death by overdose or alcohol, how they deal with it on the other side, and I was just going to get to this part, how should we deal with it on this side? And Kathy McClay, it's very difficult. She says here, I'll put it up for you. Second there. Because when you're young, especially when you're young, we don't have the facilities. We haven't been trained about how to deal with death as a society, any society, I think. And it is devastating, and we do carry it with us for the rest of our lives, especially with it happened at a young age.
Yeah, I feel like some cultures, like African tribes or New Guinea tribes, or some of those tribes we know about, but not very well in depth. Like in South America, there are tribes that will cook and or make their loved ones debone them, and kind of like the Egyptians did. But it is their, because some people will take a piece of their leg or and turn it into a handle for a knife.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Like it is their way of sharing that person, as well as not sharing, of keeping that person close, as well as offering them peace. And like old tribes would eat the heart of warriors to gain the strength of the ones passed away in battle, or there are old ways that we no longer understand.
Or nor would we probably appreciate in this world. Yeah.
I think of a better way of describing it. I'm sorry, guys.
But yeah, no, I understand that. But one of the things I would, you've dealt with this. I have actually dealt with it a lot less than you. What do you do for the survivors? How do you go forward?
I'm just read a question I want to read first.
Okay, where is it?
From Moonfeather. Are there spiritual ways to battle against the obsessive negative thoughts of suicide? One of the first things that comes to my mind is being mindful of what is going on in your mind and talking about it, sharing it, countering those thoughts with more positive thoughts. Now, that's not an easy thing to do when you are in a major depression. Okay. It's not easy. Prayers, healing, sending prayers, wrapping them in love and light. And, what do you think of that, Elijah?
I personally think that, where they say it takes a community to raise a child?
Yes.
I think it falls along the same line. The more people who send positive energy and clearings and positive thoughts and support, I'm here for you regardless of what you do, what you're going through. I love you because you're here. You don't have to have a reason for loving a person.
So just sending unconditional love.
But also, like on Elisha's Wisdom Seekers group, when we have problems, many of us will go on and say, hey, please send energy. And that really is invaluable.
It really works.
It works gangbusters. And so, yes, there
Mhm.
are a lot of spiritual ways. And I notice as the new energy comes into the world and creates chaos, that we personally who are aware of it are becoming more energetically stronger. So we have a great deal of ability to shift perspectives.
Yes.
I
Yes.
and this I can only come from my own view. I do a lot of clearings, and when I go in, I can see the energy, the dark energy being lifted off and moved away. That doesn't stop your thinking processes. You still have to deal with your own stuff. But that which is not you, and there's a lot of stuff that comes in that is not you when you pull in depression. That stuff that is not you is lifted out of the way, so it does make it easier to move forward.
Right.
I know
And
there's a little boy, I'm just sorry,
No, you're fine.
and he'll come back from a situation and he's crying and hysterical, and I'll do a quick clearing, and 15 minutes later he's back to being his cheerful self, because the dark energy that was on him, which was not his, was causing him to feel negative. And he's so young that he can't really describe it or explain it.
Yeah, and that's looking out though at somebody, but I guess what do you do when you're feeling it?
That's I'm not sure what you can do, right? Because I
Right.
do have been in dark places, and I don't want to go. I don't want to deal with society. I just want to put a pillow over my head and hide.
Right. And maybe having that little bit of mindfulness of, okay, this is going to pass, but what if you don't? And what if you get stuck in this, and that there are people are self-medicating, using alcohol, using drugs, which brings them in an even more isolated frame of mind, and down on themselves, and the mind's going negative, and those, some hide it so well that you just don't know, you don't realize.
Yeah, and they probably that young friend of your son's, nobody knew, right?
Right. No way. I mean, it was.
And some of the people who make the jokes, like Robin Williams. I mean, I
Right.
think he was chronically depressed for years.
Also,
He's
Right.
hilarious, though.
Yeah, he
Right.
was also an alcoholic that slipped quite a few number of times throughout his life. I mean, obviously it happens, but yeah, no, he was chronically depressed, and
Well,
or even Jim Carrey, who would sleep in a clown costume to make his mother laugh when things got rough.
I personally believe a lot of the people who commit suicide, not all of them, I suspect, but most of them are high empaths that don't know how to deal with it.
yeah.
And
that, I think a lot of where the drugs and alcohol come in.
yeah, I firmly believe that, from having dealt with people who,
Yes.
committed suicide, and who are not dealing well with life.
Right.
And
being an empath, and when life just keeps piling and piling, and there's so many emotions going on, and feelings, and energies, and it's just, you just get to that point where you just don't want to do it anymore, you know?
And you don't know, if you're untrained, have no idea that that you are an empath. There's not much you can do about it because you own everything.
Right.
It's just normal household stuff.
We do have a couple of comments. Question from Jeanette Preston. We touched on it earlier a bit about assisted suicide. Do the people who do have assisted suicide actually have regrets of doing things the way that they did, and do they wish that they had gone ahead with it? Or
I can't answer that. I've never talked to somebody who's committed assisted suicide.
also,
Could you pull somebody in that could answer that question? Do you know anybody that's
I'm sorry. I was reading something, so I didn't even hear that.
Oh, Jeanette Preston wanted to know people who had went through assisted suicide, do they have regrets? And I personally can't answer that. I've never actually talked to anybody.
I have not either.
I doubt that they do, because people who would commit to that probably have a very strong belief in life after.
Right.
Otherwise, they'd be just terrified of dying at any cost.
yeah.
I was reading Karen McClay. She says, I was young when my closest friend died, not suicide, but I didn't handle it well, and I feel so much guilt. There's no class for it. And, you know, I have two thoughts on this. First of all, survivor's guilt came up. And also, you know, we are not born being able to understand how to deal with our emotions when it comes to death. However people die, whether it's just a sickness, an accident, you know, and if we're not taught, if we are not walked through that, then I would think, you know, a lot of what you feel is, you know, the guilt that way.
And with you
But I don't know about,
family that knows how to deal with it either, because how many people deal with it well?
well, right. And what I'm thinking is, you know, there is so many generations back who just hid everything, hid emotions, feelings, and then that is what the next generation learned, you know. So even in that, even if breaking chains to where you go through it together. When my son's friend committed suicide, you know, we talked about it. We went to counseling. We went to the funeral, you know, and openly mourned. You know, I don't know if it was the right thing. This was
Mourning is highly underrated.
exactly, but yeah, and understanding that there is a grieving process, understanding what that grieving process is, you know, there's a lot I think that we can do to at least help each other through it, allowing somebody to talk, to share, to, you know, to learn about the grieving process, to go to a support group, to, you know, so it's not inside and your head's just, you know, not spinning in a million different directions, and you're having all kinds of thoughts you don't understand, and
they might not even be your own thoughts.
right.
So, and there are support groups for everything now, I would suspect.
Sure.
You just how do you find them though, Erin?
Google,
Yeah.
talking to people.
Because nowadays you can do it online, I assume.
You can,
Yeah.
and that preference is up to the
Yeah, no, I
person,
was thinking, like if you live in a small town and you don't want and the small towns are gossips. That's just the way it is. Maybe
Well,
online would be a alternative.
yes,
No support group in your place.
yeah, definitely,
But
definitely.
I do think often the physical contact is a necessity.
I agree.
On that note, there's two comments
There's
from
2 comments.
Lori Dotson. One is with her own dealing with her brother's suicide was, I moved forward knowing I would carry him with me and continue to care for my mom and be the most happy person no matter what is going on outside of me. No dark in my heart make any sense. So it's along the lines of what you were talking about.
And it's not an overnight process
No.
Oh
either.
gosh, no. You
I-
can,
There might be years of it. And
yes,
you might feel good for years and then fall back.
exactly. You can be think you're through the whole grieving process, and then you back up and you're angry again, or then you get, there is no rhyme or reason. It's an individual process.
Well, and
Yeah.
depending on who they are in your life, brother, father, mother, best friend, loved one of any kind, I feel like that anger and grief doesn't really ever go away. Or am I just
No, you're right.
it? Because I mean, if you lose your sibling, it's how dare you? I needed you. How could you do this to me? And then go, I love you regardless, but God, I miss you. And then have that cycle every now and then happen.
I guess I'm a little bit off because when my mother died, I never mourned. But my mother was right there talking to me for like 15 minutes after she passed.
But
And so I just never got to a place where I missed her. But that's because I'm lucky, right? Because I can talk to her.
and that's also a different.
She was
trauma.
97 when she died.
Yeah.
It was well expected.
And she died peacefully and basically in her sleep with family. It wasn't I'm gonna take this knife and plunge it through my heart.
And she was
how
old
dare-
and she wanted to go and
Yeah.
everything like that.
It's different.
There
trauma.
are times though I think, well, I should go tell my mom, and I do miss her physically, but I don't really have to go tell her anything.
Well, and Elle, I think what you were talking about is, that's the grieving process right there. That's going through different steps of it and then going back and going through, even if you could come to a sort of a peace in your heart and a type of healing, there's going to be times in your life where, you may go back to that, that stage of being angry,
Or you might you say, dang, why aren't you here? I'm getting married. And I'm
Right.
celebrate this
Right.
with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lori Dotson's second comment is, Erin, you are truly a blessing. I really needed this. I've never spoken about this before. And she also asked about a church, going to a church, would they have support groups? Me, I talked to God, and his angels helped me. He and his angels helped me. So, I mean, in that aspect of openly grieving, or having support in ways, I think that a church would be helpful.
I think it would depend on the church.
But like, it also would depend on your belief of the next life, other side. what have you?
I think it is absolutely on an individual basis.
Yeah.
You know, a church may be good for one person, but not for another. You know, but I think the good thing is we do have so many resources available to us to help us. You know, okay, so this church thing, it's not working. I'm not, you know, so then you try a support group. You know, we're different. How we grieve, how we do things, our beliefs are different. So one size does not fit all. And that's okay. As long as you look and find something that will help you, you know, living in that hell in your mind that, you know, even in the grieving process, living in that alone in your mind is not healthy.
And then sometimes you actually need some chemicals to put, you know, like lithium or something, because your brain is short circuiting. And then that's just how it is.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I know a lot of people want to do the natural way without going that way, but sometimes
Sometimes.
not a choice.
Yeah, I agree.
Along those lines, Karen McClay says, I'm so much older now, but yes, you hit the nail on the head. The older generation didn't talk about sickness and death. It was just, there's a funeral and that's that. You're done.
Ooh.
Right.
I remember when my kids were very young, I think Elle was like 5 or something, and this lady we knew who was a good friend of mine, an older lady, she died, and I went to the funeral, and I took my kids with them consciously because I wanted them to be aware
Yes.
of the cycle of life.
Yes.
But I'm, you know, being an empath, and at that time I wasn't fully trained. I cried a lot. And the kids, they gave me the dirtiest looks ever, that I would cry that much at somebody else's funeral. And I'm thinking, and I felt really bad at the time that I had committed some kind of a social faux pas. But really, now looking back on it, I realize that I was just releasing my grief. But at that time, I felt really bad.
Do you think maybe you were picking up some of the grief from other people too?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, I was untrained empath.
Yeah, yeah.
And even now, if it's really powerful, I will still
Yes.
pick it up. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah.
The note, when I was about 9.5, 10, maybe 8, my grandmother on my father's side passed away. And that summer that I went to go visit him, I asked if we could go to her gravesite so I could say goodbye to her. Because we were living down in Mexico at the time of her passing. And my sisters and I couldn't be there for the funeral to say goodbye. So I wanted to see where she was laid to rest and say goodbye in post-funeral or whatever.
Yeah.
She was a good woman.
She was lovely. Didn't understand a word she said to me.
She only spoke French.
But she made the best soup and had the loveliest garden. And
she had a huge garden.
Anyhow,
I just won't eat my soup after eating her soup.
No. But after those memories and asking my father if I could go or if we could go and visit her at her gravesite and, you know, have that final ending with her. He's
closure.
Like, yeah, he said, no, she's fine. Don't worry about it. It's not here.
Yeah, but her father lacks a lot of emotional empathy.
But it is
and that's how some people are.
Yeah.
And it's also along the lines of, I've dealt with it, you don't need to, don't worry.
Yeah.
So he also didn't deal with it either.
No, but let's not go any further into that. Because just in case somebody watches this, that I wouldn't really want to upset somebody, dear.
Erin McClay, I just read that. She adds, I cry at everything now. I just hide it well.
Yeah, but I would suggest, Karen, that you look into traits of empath and maybe join Wisdom Seekers Facebook group.
She did join our page.
Okay, but I'm talking about the group because there are often, if I don't answer a question, somebody else will answer a question. Erin will answer a question. How to deal with being an empath is one of the biggest things that we need to deal with at this moment, and not just, but one of the best things that is very important, because most people nowadays are empaths.
Yeah.
Lori,
one of the most important things I will just say is you have to protect your energy. Visualize the white light, a bubble around you. So nothing, no negative, no other people's feelings. It protects you and your energy, so you're not feeling other people's stuff. Okay.
And another thing too is grounding. I mean, I sound like a broken record lately, but grounding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lori Dodson adds, I replaced my grief with something good. I had so many years of up and down. It's been 29 years. I just found out I was an empath about a year ago. Also, if you don't have insurance, drugs are costly.
Not if you go off the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't go to a church. I spoke to God. He sent people my way. I did Prozac for a minute. I didn't like it.
No. But that doesn't mean sometimes it's not really necessary. But
and Karen McClay, the link to our group is also in the description. It's right below Facebook group. It's Elisha's Wisdom Seekers.
And there's also Dreams and Visions, which is a slightly different group. It's also very good at if you have questions that need to be answered. Okay. So we are actually at a full hour.
Yeah. All right, 62 minutes.
Okay, so we're over a full hour.
Did we want to answer questions or?
Oh no, you have to go, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Erin is a busy lady.
Yeah. So
always busy.
For people who were expecting questions, part of that is my bad, because I was expecting, half this, half questions.
But it's a topic that needed to be dealt with.
Yeah. That's awesome, Lori.
But join us on Friday,
which is tomorrow.
We will be back, Elisha and I. And
when she says Elisha, she means Mom, but that's all right.
And do weeklies.
Yeah, we'll be doing the weeklies tomorrow. I will do one in the morning, and my other daughter is going to try and help me do the other one in the afternoon, and that should be really exciting. And then Saturday we'll go back.
Mellow Yellow.
She doesn't know how to do it, and I don't know how to do it, so it should be fun.
Yeah. And I won't be here to help them, so that should be extra fun.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Karen.
So, yeah, join us tomorrow. Join us on Instagram, where we will be trying to do a live sometime today.
Maybe.
Possibly, maybe. We'll see. Join us on Instagram and find out.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us again. Look for us, Wisdom Seekers, on Facebook, along with Elijah's Wisdom Seekers on Facebook. We're on Instagram and, of course, here on YouTube.
And we're going to try and do everything like this on YouTube so that we don't have to upload it. So I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll try.
It's up there.
I know, but we also have on Wisdom Seekers, we have a meditation that we did yesterday. It was really super good.
It was.
And next Thursday at noon Pacific time, we're going to do a nutrition with Kristen, and I can't pronounce her last name, so I won't. And next Friday we'll be doing an in-depth with Elizabeth. I don't know the subject yet. Monday, either Erin or I will do an interactive. Depends on how things go. So we're back and busy again. And thank you so much. You don't have to stay. I'm just going to say goodbye now. And again, thank you everybody for being here with us.
Yes, and don't forget, we are at www.wisdomseekers.net. Thank you.
On the .net.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.